Baltic Sea. It lies in northern Europe in a strategic location that is surrounded by 9 countries. These include Poland, Germany, Sweden, Lithuania, Latvia, Finland, Estonia, and Germany. The sea stretches from 53° north to 66° north latitude and from 10° east to 30° east longitude. It is a shelf sea and marginal sea of the Atlantic with limited water exchange between the two, making it an inland sea. The Baltic Sea drains through the Danish Straits into the Kattegat by way of the Øresund, Great Belt and Little Belt. It includes the Gulf of Bothnia, the Bay of Bothnia, the Gulf of Finland, the Gulf of Riga and the Bay of Gdansk. Sea is about 1,610 km long, an average of 193 km wide, and an average of 55 m deep. The maximum depth is 459 meters on the Swedish side of the center. The surface area is about 377,000 square kilometer and the volume is about 21,000 cubic kilometer. The periphery amounts to about 8,000 km of coastline. These figures are somewhat variable because a number of different estimates have been made. Baltic Sea drainage basin is roughly 4 times the surface area of the sea itself. About 48% of the region is forested, with Sweden and Finland containing the majority of the forest, especially around the gulfs of Bothnia and Finland. About 20% of the land is used for agriculture and pasture, mainly in Poland and around the edge of the Baltic Sea proper, in Germany, Denmark and Sweden. About 17% of the basin is unused open land, with another 8% of wetlands. Most of the latter are in the gulfs of Bothnia and Finland. The rest of the land is heavily populated. Baltic Sea has a shallow outlet as it is almost surrounded by land on all sides. The Oder and the Vistula are 2 prominent rivers that meet with it. These rivers are long and have the influence of a temperature continental climate. As a result, they have a slower rate of evaporation. This explains why both rivers have a slower rate of evaporation. Speaking of the salinity of the Baltic Sea, the Western Baltic records the highest salinity. On the other water of the Gulf of Bothnia is the least saline. The top portion records about 1/3 of the average salinity of the sea. The northern coast of the Baltic shows contrasting features compared to its southern coast. The coast in countries such as Finland and Sweden are rocky and do not have an even surface. The coast of the southern Baltic, on the other hand, have a flat surface that lacks a definite feature. One of the highlights of the Baltic is its coastal features that are more prominent in eastern Denmark. These features have resulted from glaciation that had taken place in the Pleistocene era. While the eastern part is low-lying, the southern part has shallow bays. The Baltic coast had been a popular tourist spot for ages. However, its essence has come under the spotlight only in the last few decades. The unusual charm of seaside towns and white sand beaches gives a sense of relief to the eye at the first sight. For a change, these aspects allow tourists to relax their mood and rejuvenate themselves when they visit the Baltic coast on a vacation. Visitors generally come here to spend some moments of quietude from the hustle and bustle of city life. The coast of the Baltic doesn't disappoint them in this regard. Generally, freshwater and marine wildlife thrive in their respective environments or habitats, but some habitable zones support both these forms of life in a single atmosphere. The Baltic is one among them. Many rivers, including the major ones, flow into the Baltic Sea. This is responsible for bringing freshwater organisms into it. The presence of life forms from both freshwater and marine water environments is a hallmark feature of the Baltic Sea. It draws the attention of environmentalists and other curious people to its water. The less density of salt, which is primarily responsible for creating a conducive environment for freshwater wildlife, also leads to the accumulation of the ice caps. On average, the Baltic Sea is iced in winter for roughly half of its surface area. The ice reaches its maximum extent in February or March. Typical ice thickness in the northernmost areas in the Bothnian Bay. The northern basin of the Gulf of Bothnia is about 70 centimeters or 28 inches for landfast sea ice. The thickness decreases further south. The Baltic Sea is a challenging habitat for many organisms. The water is too fresh for oceanic organisms, yet too salty for freshwater organisms. Although the plants, animals, and algae in the Baltic Sea have adapted to living in these particular conditions, even small changes in their habitat can have dramatic consequences. For example, seawater that has been warmed by climate change no longer provides a suitable habitat for all its inhabitants. Protecting marine nature in the Baltic Sea is therefore very important. The Gulf of Finland extends for about 400 kilometers from St. Petersburg in the east to the Hanko Peninsula in the west. It has a maximum width of 130 kilometers at its widest point. The Gulf is relatively shallow with a maximum depth of 115 meters and an estimated average depth of 38 meters. It has been observed that the western part of the Gulf is much deeper, while its eastern part is shallower. Numerous large and small rivers drain into the Gulf of Finland, including the Jagala, Kymi, Kiela, Kuvashi, Kunda, Luga, Neva, Narva, Pirita, Purvu, Sistra, Sista, and Vanta. The Gulf is also connected to the Saimaa Lake via the Saimaa Canal. The huge amount of fresh water inflow from these rivers accounts for the extremely low salinity of the Gulf of Finland. The highly curved northern coastline of the Gulf consists of many rocky islets and small and large bays like Viborg Bay and the Porklanemi and Hanko peninsulas. The southern coastline of the Gulf is comparatively smooth and shallow. It also features the Baltic Plint, a 1,200 kilometer long limestone escarpment that stretches along the entire southern coastline of the Gulf. According to the Köppen climate classification, the Gulf of Finland region faces a humid continental climate with hot summers and relatively harsh winters. The average water temperature ranges from 0 degrees Celsius in the winter to 17 degrees Celsius in summer. The Gulf freezes during the winter season from December to late April. Strong western winds are quite frequent in this region and cause floods, higher waves and wave surges.